This aircraft runs entirely on biofuel, obtained from old frying oil. Scientists found out during emissions tests that it's a double win for the climate. But let's start from the beginning. A visit to the gas station in Madrid. Here, customers can hand in fat from deep fat fryers in return for gas vouchers. What used to be a waste product is now a valuable raw material for the company. The used oil is collected and shipped to Cartagena, to a brand new refinery which produces more sustainable fuels.
There are two reactors. They convert components from leftover cooking oil into the same components that we have in petroleum-based fuels. Chemically, the end product is exactly the same.
Only a few months after opening, the plant is already operating at full capacity.
Today alone, we produced 8 cubic meters every hour. That's 8,000 litres of sustainable kerosene an hour.
Running out of frying oil is not a likely scenario for the time being. The manufacturers say there's huge potential in collection points like these.
Everyone needs to recognise the importance of collecting household cooking oil. Today, only 5% of it is collected. But it can have a second life as a renewable fuel.
Just a few kilometres from the gas station at Madrid Airport, fuel from the new refinery is already in use. Tests show that kerosene derived from cooking oil works well in the engines. By 2030, Iberia wants to fuel 10% of its fleet with the new kerosene, an ambitious target.
A study showed the huge potential for developing a sustainable fuel industry, especially in Spain. It's strategically important for us to make aviation cleaner because, looking at our country, we're at the edge of Europe and we have many islands that we need to connect to the mainland.
The more sustainable kerosene, made from chip fat for example, still costs a good 3 times as much. However, prices should fall with increased supply. A new refinery is being built in Andalusia, turning even more waste into fuel. It will be the largest of its kind in Europe.
We process vegetable oils, as well as animal fats and waste from the agricultural and food industries.
Incidentally, the largest investor in this plant is from Abu Dhabi, better known of course for its oil business. It seems they too see a profitable future in sustainable fuels. Another driving force behind the development is the EU. It stipulates that aircraft must be fueled with 2% sustainable aviation fuel, 6% by 2030, and by 2050, that figure should rise to 70%. In this lab south of Madrid, the fuel company Repsol is researching which raw materials other than crude oil could be used for aviation.
If trees have to be cut down, for example, we can use all the material left on the ground and convert it into renewable fuels.
Frying oil, though, is tried and tested. And waste oil from many a churros stand already makes its way to the recycling plant. The German Aerospace Centre has researched the environmental effect of the fuel. Using a research aircraft, the experts examined exhaust fumes from larger commercial aircraft. The first fueled conventionally. The second fueled entirely with the new alternative fuel, made from leftover cooking oil, for example.
We were able to show that sustainable aviation fuels have led to lower soot particle emissions. This reduces ice crystals in condensation trails, and that reduces warming.
Fewer contrails, less greenhouse effect.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Scientists predict a volcano near Oregon could erupt this year.
Jillian Fortner spoke with experts about what this could mean for the region.
Scientists say Axel Seamount is the most active volcano in the Pacific Northwest. It is located less than 300 miles off the Oregon coast.
We usually go out there with a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, so that's a robotic vehicle. It's about the size of a minivan.
Chadwick and his colleagues have been studying the underwater volcano for decades. Their data shows the volcano has been swelling at changing rates, indicating an upcoming eruption.
It's inflating at a pretty good pace, plus the number of earthquakes is way up in the last year, so all those things are pointing toward it building up.
Earth Sciences instructor Danielle McKay says the volcano's frequent eruptions makes it easier to predict its activity.
It's erupted 3 times since 1998, I think. So much more active than Mount St. Helens or the other volcanoes that we think of here in the Pacific Northwest.
It's also closely monitored with advanced technology.
The volcano has all this monitoring equipment on it, and then the cables are going directly to land, and they're like a high-speed internet connection.
I can look at data on my laptop and, see data that was collected 10 minutes ago out there.
That is actually much better than any monitoring system that we have on the Three Sisters or on Newberry.
If Axel Seamount erupts, we won't see the impacts here on land.
It's not the type of eruption that would cause a tsunami.
There's nothing to worry about for people living on the Oregon coast or anywhere in Oregon. But so we're not doing this forecasting thing for a hazard.
Predicting eruptions at this volcano can help scientists gain a better understanding of those that pose greater threats.
Hopefully there's some lessons to be learned for other more dangerous volcanoes around the world, even the ones in the Cascades.
I learned that Axel is the world's most monitored submarine volcano. Its frequent activity has led to the creation of the first underwater observatory. Jillian Fortner, News Channel.
South Korean military. North Korea has launched multiple short-range ballistic missiles towards the sea of the country's east coast. The launch comes as Japanese foreign minister visited South Korea for a series of meetings with top officials. With the Asian neighbors seeking to boost bilateral ties before Donald Trump returns to office next week. And according to South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff, Tuesday's launch took place near North Korea's Gyeonggi in Jeogang province near its borders with China. The missiles flew 250 kilometers before landing in waters between the Korean peninsula and Japan. The United States Indo-Pacific Command condemned the test, calling on North Korea to refrain from further unlawful and destabilizing acts. Seoul's acting president also slammed the launch, saying it violated UN Security Council resolutions. Meanwhile, Japanese chief government spokesperson said that the multiple short-range ballistic missiles did not land in Japan's territory or in its exclusive economic zone, but also said that North Korea's strengthening nuclear missile program is threatening the peace and security of Japan.
North Korea has expressed interest in strengthening its nuclear missile program, and their actions, including their missile launches, are threatening peace and security of Japan, the region, and the international community.
Tuesday's launch was Pyongyang's second this month after it fired what it said was a new hypersonic missile system last week. The launch also occurred days before the inauguration of Donald Trump, who held unprecedented summits with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during his first term and has touted their personal rapport.
China is reportedly building a new class of amphibious barges, sparking fears that an attack on Taiwan is indeed coming soon. As per reports, these vessels could be used to transport tanks and supplies across unpassable ground. And this has led experts to believe that their purpose is to carry Chinese army vehicles over Taiwanese beaches during a full-scale invasion. Now, Naval News reported that as many as 5 such barges are under construction at Guangzhou shipyard in southern China. As per the report, these barges take just a few months to complete. They represent a new and critical capability for Chinese forces. In simple terms, the barges connect ships to the shore virtually. According to reports, the barge is essentially a floating pier. These vessels feature extended road bridges estimated to be around up to 120 meters long, and this allows them to reach a coastal road or hard surface beyond a beach. It beaches itself on the sand, one end anchored on dry land, the other jutting into the surf. The plans have drawn comparisons to the barges built by the Allies for the Normandy landings during World War II. Now, the new Chinese barges perform the same function as the US military's Joint Logistics Over-the-Shore System, or JLOTS. JLOTS made headlines when the US military tried to use the system to establish a humanitarian pier in Gaza. According to reports, Chinese Navy has built up a substantial amphibious flotilla. It includes 8 Type 071 landing docks for hauling troops and supplies, at least 3 Type 075 assault ships for carrying troops and helicopters, and 1 giant Type 076 assault ship can also launch and land high-performance drones. All 3 types can also deploy landing craft. Some analysts believe China would need to move 2 million people across the strait to guarantee victory. Weighing in at 400,000 tons or something close to that, this is the second largest amphibious force after the US Navy. However, it still might not be enough for a full-scale invasion. Citing multiple sources, the report said the barges would give China the ability to land tanks and military forces at places that were previously considered unsuitable. This means instead of relying on Taiwanese ports, China could sail its own mobile part across the straits.
Taiwan's national security authorities are giving some indication of the extent of the challenge that Taiwan's up against when it comes to Chinese espionage. A new report contains figures showing the numbers of prosecutions jumping in recent years, from 16 in 2021 to 64 in 2024. Of the 64, 28 involved serving members of the military and 15 former members of the military. Other targets for China's spying recruitment, according to Taiwan, are government agencies and local temples, religious groups and criminal gangs. One of the more notable parts of the new report is about what China would try to get its spy networks to do if it invaded Taiwan. The National Security Bureau says that gangs recruited as spies were asked to raise Chinese flags and carry out armed insurrection, and that China is instructing recruits to form sniper teams to plan sniper missions against military facilities and foreign institutions in Taiwan. To counter all this, the National Security Bureau says it's cooperating more closely with military and investigative agencies. Fu Huaheng, Justin Wu and Louise Watt in Taipei for Taiwan Plus.
The Philippines has raised an alarm over China's increasing aggression in the disputed South China Sea. It says it is keeping all the options open, including the potential for new international lawsuits. Here's a report.
China is amplifying its aggression, ramping up its intimidation campaign in the disputed South China Sea, keeping its neighbor Taiwan and Philippines on their toes. These are the images of Philippine Coast Guard warning Chinese ship from entering into its maritime zone. It is CCG-5901, nicknamed Monster Ship, the world's largest Coast Guard vessel that belongs to China. The gigantic ship is 541 feet long and has a displacement of 12,000 tons. It is said to be thrice the size of US Coast Guard vessels. The ship is also known to have more firepower as compared to its counterparts in the US. Armed with anti-aircraft guns, CCG-5901 has two main 76.2mm guns to tackle threats in the high seas. Its massive fuel storage capacity allows it to undertake extended missions up to 45 days. Philippines is protesting against China's continued presence in its economic zone and territorial waters. It accuses China of intimidation tactic intended to discourage Filipino fishing. It claims China is normalizing its legal presence in the disputed Scarborough Shoal.
All options are on the table because the closer the monster ship is in Philippine waters, the more it makes tensions high and the more that the Philippine government contemplates things it was not contemplating before. But on the part of the Philippines, these are clear consequences kasi nga you're pushing us to the wall.
The monster ship has been last located 143 kilometers west of Capones Island in Zambales province. The Philippine Coast Guard has deployed vessels to pressure the Chinese ship to move further away from the coast of Zambales. China defends its intensive Coast Guard patrols. It warns Manila against driving a wedge between China and other countries.
The Chinese Coast Guard's patrols and law enforcement is in accordance with the law in relevant waters and is beyond reproach. We once again warn the Philippine side to immediately stop all infringement, provocation, and hyping, and to stop all actions that undermine peace and tranquility in the South China Sea and complicate the situation.
The clashes between the two nations have become more frequent even as Philippines deepen security ties with the US and other allies in a bid to assert its own claims. The disputed waterway is a strategic shipping route through which about $3 trillion of annual commerce moves. How far will China go to prove expansive claims is yet to be seen. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
During Aramco's Iktifa Forum, Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman revealed the kingdom's plans to monetize all minerals, including uranium. "We will enrich it and we will sell it and we will do a yellow cake," Prince Abdulaziz told the attendees, referring to a powdered concentrate of the mineral used to prepare uranium fuel for nuclear reactors. In 2013, Saudi Arabia had planned to establish a civil nuclear power industry with 17 gigawatts electric of nuclear capacity by 2032. But that target was abandoned 2 years later, according to the World Nuclear Association. Now, the GCC nation is revisiting the idea with plans to expand its programs to eventually include uranium enrichment. Riyadh has said it wants to use its nuclear power to diversify its energy mix. But the nation has yet to fire up its first nuclear reactor, which allows its program to still be monitored under the Small Quantities Protocol, an agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency that exempts less advanced states from many reporting obligations and inspections.
Landslides caused by torrential rains in southeast Brazil have left at least 10 people dead. 9 others died in the city of Ipatinga, where 80 millimeters of rain fell in the space of 1 hour on Saturday night. Firefighters pulled out the body of an 8-year-old boy, from the rubble of a house destroyed by a landslide. Another landslide swept away everything in its path along a street on the side of a hill in the city's Bethania neighborhood. A body was also found in the nearby town of Santa do Paraíso. Images from the scene showed rubble from the houses poking up from the mud. As of Sunday evening, 1 person from the area remained missing, though 4 members of the person's family were rescued. Latin America's biggest country has been rocked by several extreme weather events over the past year. Massive floods caused by days of record-breaking rain killed more than 180 people in the south of the country in April and May last year. Brazil also suffered a historic drought linked to climate change, laying the ground for the worst wildfires in 17 years, which consumed vast chunks of the Amazon rainforest.
This morning, there was a shootout here in the taxi rank between 2 warring parties within a same taxi organization. And the shootout resulted to injuries and 1 person dying on the scene, which the scene is still live. And 7 people were critically injured, have been taken to hospital. And because of the fact that we had our team here, TRTs and combat teams, provincial combat teams, were in the area with intelligence. We prevented what could have been worse in terms of shooting, and we have now taken 20 firearms that are on the scene. Then for now, we don't know how many more that we will get when we comb the scene again. We're just waiting for our other crime scene management to deal with that. 13 of those are rifles and 7 are pistols. And we have had taken 17 people that are lying and are there now, who will be taken for questioning. And they belong to certain security companies that we are going to be following up. And they are not from here. They are from the other provinces. So we're looking into that. Once we're done with the scene, then we'll continue following up how they landed up here. And some of them at return taxi violence.
And well, in just a week, Donald Trump will officially take over the U.S. presidency. The inauguration, scheduled on 20th January, will mark the beginning of a new chapter in American politics. The ceremony at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. will also see J.D. Vance taking oath as the vice president. In a historic departure from tradition, the Trump team has invited world leaders from across the globe to attend the event, including key allies and rivals. Representing India at the ceremony will be External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who will also hold high-level talks with the incoming administration and global dignitaries. China's President Xi Jinping has been invited to the ceremony. However, reports suggest that the Chinese leader will likely send a high-ranking envoy instead. Leaders like Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Argentina's President Javier Milei, and Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban are expected to attend. Invites have also been sent to former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro and French far-right politician Éric Zemmour. The country singer Carrie Underwood will be performing at the inauguration ceremony. Her publicist has confirmed that. Now, Underwood said she is honored to have been asked to be a small part of this historic event. Ahead of the inaugural ceremony, top officials in Washington, D.C. spelled out security plans for the event, which is expected to attract some 250,000 ticketed attendees.
We are not currently tracking any specific or credible threats to the inaugural ceremony or to the Capitol complex. We will continue to work closely with our partners to share information and identify and disrupt any threats that may emerge.
The inaugural committee has already raised over $170 million, with donations pouring in from industry giants like Boeing, Google, Meta, and Microsoft, along with tech leaders like Tim Cook and Sam Altman. Meanwhile, incoming First Lady Melania Trump has said that she is ready for the transition to the White House. In a Fox News program, she said this transition felt smoother than the previous one in 2017, and she is currently in the process of hiring staff.
Didn't have much of the information. The information was upheld for us from previous administration, but this time I have everything. I have the plans. I could move in. I already packed. I already selected the furniture that needs to go in. So it's very different transition.
I've said many times, we're at an inflection point. The post-Cold War period is over. A new era has begun. In these 4 years, we faced crises that we've been tested. We've come through those tests stronger, in my view, than we entered those tests. This is a fierce competition underway. The future of the global economy, technology, human values, and so much else. Right now, in my view, thanks to our administration, the United States is winning the worldwide competition. Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. Now, make no mistake, there are serious challenges the United States must continue to deal with. In Ukraine, in the Middle East, in the Indo-Pacific. Must keep the pressure on the Houthis, who are attacking ships in the Red Sea, launching missiles at Israel, and firing at American forces. must deter North Korea as they rattle their saber and draw closer to Russia. And new challenges will certainly emerge in the months and years ahead. But even so, it's clear my administration is leaving the next administration with a very strong hand to play. And we're leaving them in America with more friends and stronger alliances, whose adversaries are weaker and under pressure. An America that once again is leading, uniting countries, setting the agenda, bringing others together behind our plans and visions.
From geopolitics to the G20, elections to the economy, 2025 is shaping up to be another bumpy year for Africa. Now, in January, our focus is on the Horn of Africa, with Ethiopia set to open a new stock exchange. It's part of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's plan to open up the nation to investors and help rebuild the war-ravaged country. Then, in February, the African Union will elect a new chairperson for its commission. 2025 will be another key test for democracy on the continent after a year of profound political change, with voters punishing ruling parties in several African countries. We'll be closely watching polls in Tanzania and the Ivory Coast in October. And as part of its presidency of the G20, South Africa will host a number of events, culminating in the annual G20 summit in November. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa wants to use his country's leadership of the Group of 20 to ease the plight of heavily indebted African nations in a year when Africa will have a bigger voice on the global stage.
At least 400 illegal miners remained trapped underground in South Africa 2 months after a police raid, a group working on behalf of the miners said on Monday. The group also released the following graphic videos it received from miners that emerged on January 10th, when a pulley was restored to the bottom of the cavern. The first video reportedly shows miners' bodies wrapped in sacks and plastic, while living miners who are still stuck underground plead for help. A Reuters reporter counted what looked like 36 bodies in the footage. Reuters could not independently confirm that the body-shaped objects were corpses.
Look at this. Look, how many days must you live in a situation like this?
A second video shows shirtless miners looking emaciated with their ribs protruding. The two videos were obtained by the South African miners' rights group Mining Affected Communities United in Action, or MACUA. Reuters verified the video but was unable to independently verify the location or date they were taken. A spokesperson for the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy said bodies had been retrieved from the mine, but said no further details could be divulged ahead of an official report. They added that South African authorities are at the mine with machinery, preparing for a planned rescue this week. The South Africa Police Service did not respond to a request for comment. The standoff began in November when police blocked the miners' supply of food and water to force them out and arrest them for illegally entering the abandoned mine. The miners were searching for leftover gold, an issue that has plagued South Africa for decades.
Bawa ke tuai. Tuai kereta paling ni.
Meters of hillside gone in seconds. A bed and a surfboard left in the trail of debris. This luxury $2 million hilltop home tumbled and now sits in ruins off the street below.
No words really, just shocking.
I'd be very worried if I was on top of the hill. Very worried.
A council worker was inspecting the property at the time after another landslide here just over a week ago. The man in his 50s leaping for his life off the balcony.
It had been condemned and was going to be pulled down, and he jumped on the balcony and then it started to go. And then he dived off, and I think he probably shattered his legs and his pelvis and everything.
A terrifying close call for neighbour Simon Borghese and his family.
Yesterday we had a veg patch, and as I say, this morning Mum was out there picking some zucchinis, and 20 minutes later that whole veg patch area is just gone. To think that any moment you could just give in, and yeah, you could be right there. Like I say, I couldn't have lost my mum this morning. It was that close, but yeah, we're lucky to be alive.